So my name is Dexter Wimberly. I'm a senior critic at New York Academy of Art. I want to welcome everyone to today's discussion about all things NFTs. Wasn't sure how that title was going to fly, but it seemed to work. And I'm happy that we had such a large response to today's discussion. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists today in alphabetical order. Tam Gryn is the Director of Fine Arts at Rally.io, where she helps artists create their own autonomous crypto economies. She is also head curator at Showfields. She is the former head of the curatorial department of the Artist Pension Trust, as well as head curator at Roar Pop-Up. Tam has curated multiple art exhibitions as well as charity fundraisers. Clients and collaborators include the Brooklyn Museum, the Whitney Museum, UTA, Glossier, Heineken, Bankless, Avion, MasterCard, and the School of Visual Arts, New York City. Originally from Venezuela, Tam studied art history at the Sorbonne University, politics at Reichman University, and negotiation at Tel Aviv University. Thanks for joining us today, Tam. Sho-Joung Kim-Wechsler is the founder of If So What Art Fair, an event that merges art, music, and innovation. Forward-thinking, Sho saw the potential for crypto art and NFTs before the current craze. In 2018, within the first 10 minutes of her VIP opening of the inaugural If So What Art Fair, a prominent collector paid $400,000 for a crypto-themed artwork titled Yellow Lambo by conceptual artist Kevin Abosh. If So What has recently expanded into a new technology platform called XVERSO that brings together their community of artists, art professionals, art lovers, and collectors through social media and art investments in NFTs and fractional shares. Thank you for joining us today. Kenny Schachter has been curating contemporary art exhibits in museums and galleries and teaching art history and economics for more than 30 years. Presently in the graduate department of the University of Zurich, professorship at the School of Visual Arts in New York City, as well as New York University. Kenny has lectured internationally, been the recipient of a Rockefeller-supported grant in Mexico, and contributed to books on several important figures, including Zaha Hadid, Sigmund Polk, and Gerhard Richter. Kenny has a regular column on artnet.com, in addition to writing widely for various international publications, including, most recently, New York Magazine and New York Times Magazine. Hey, Kenny, how are you? Kennedy Yanko is a sculptor and installation artist working in found metal and paint skin. Yanko deploys her materials in ways that explore the limitations of optic vision, underlining the opportunities we miss when looking with eyes alone. Her methods reflect a dual abstract expressionist surrealist approach that centers the seen and the unseen factors that affect, contribute to, and moderate human experience. Thank you for joining us today, Kennedy, as well. So today's discussion could go in a lot of different directions. And I know that this is a topic that has gotten so much media coverage in the past couple of years. I want to begin by sort of framing why we're here today and how we would hopefully want to approach this topic from the perspective of NFT's ability and potential to empower individual artists and artist communities. I know that each of you have different ways of interacting with and working with and presenting NFTs in the work that you do. So I want to start with you, Tam. Obviously, anyone who did a little bit of research on Rally might know a bit about what the company does and what you do there, but maybe you could share a bit from your own perspective.
Yes, thank you, Dexter, for the invite, and good evening, everyone. So I'm the director of Fine Arts at Rally, and our philosophy is a digital economy is composed by two things. Right now, the entire world is, as you well said, kind of obsessed with NFTs. Non-fungible tokens are ways in order to create a digital economy that supports artists and creators. And there's another way in which Rally is very much known for, which is the fungible part of a digital economy. So for those of you who might need a reminder, or it's the first time that you hear it, non-fungible is the idea of you cannot trade something for a similar thing of the same value. So a piece by Kenny is not the same value as a piece by Kennedy. You cannot trade them for an equal value, and that's why they're non-fungible. And then fungible is like your $1 bill can be traded for my $1 bill, and that's fungible. So I'd rather focus a lot on this idea of social tokens or community tokens in order to build and glue communities together around artists or galleries or any sort of artistic community beyond just NFTs.
Thanks for sharing that. Kenny, I enjoy following you on Instagram, as I'm sure a lot of people enjoy following you on Instagram and reading your columns. You seem to be very enthusiastic about NFTs, and I would love to hear your perspective of why you think it's such an important thing and what you see as their potential.
Thank you for having me. Most importantly, I don't really care about NFTs altogether. What I do care about, first and foremost, is art. And I'm crazy, passionate, and in love with all things art. I've been in the art world for over 30 years, as you mentioned, which pretty much translate into the fact that I'm the oldest one on this panel. But because I basically consider myself an outsider to some extent, an inside outsider, but I'm self-taught in art. And I've done a lot of things, like you mentioned, teaching, writing, making art, curating, and then having to sell it to, most prominently, just to have a position to remain in the art world. But the art world is a very judgmental and a very exclusionary environment, and access is hard fought. And although I've been accepted as a professor and as a writer only since the advent of social media, it's been almost impossible for anyone to accept the fact that I've been making art for 30 plus years. And in a way, I really don't care that the art world, the word that it knows the most is the word no. You can't do this, you can't say that, you can't behave in this fashion. And I believe as long as I'm not hurting anyone or breaking the law, if I choose to make a fool of myself, and if I decide to make art, then why shouldn't I? You have one life. And even Marx said, why can't you be an economist in the morning and a fisherman in the afternoon? And as a result, in the beginning, I curated my own work into exhibitions. And then over the past 10 years, I've created my own platform to exhibit my work, which was mainly embedding my articles with videos that I've made. So social media was the first kind of way for artists to blur the geographical boundaries and to be able to express themselves and show their work far and wide. And not since, well, NFTs gave artists the opportunity to sell their work without relying on the gallery system. Although since I've been exhibiting NFTs and I've been involved for 1.5 years, I now have a gallery, funny enough, and I have an exhibition in Berlin right now. So really, I just think for me, look, I'm not, I've been called an evangelist and a zealot for NFTs, and I'm very cognizant of the issues with NFTs and the environmental problem and the fact that it's been referred, in my last article, I addressed a lot of the complaints about NFTs, the fact that it's called a pyramid within a pyramid and an excuse to promote crypto. It goes on and on and on. And in fact, there's a film that just came out on YouTube by Dan Olson called The Line Goes Up. And it's probably one of the most extreme polemical pieces of journalism anti all things crypto and NFT. But I think that, I feel like I'm at war, and I get trolled all I wanted to do was make art. I'm not like, I'm very aware of Bitcoin and Ethereum detrimental aspects on the environment. And I think that these issues are being addressed incrementally. But I just think, through my lectures, writing and teaching, I've personally helped to onboard hundreds and hundreds of people. And look, most people in the fine art world have a very difficult time selling their work. Most artists in the NFT space have a very difficult time selling their work. Art is a slow burning process, and it's a painstaking process where you have to claw your way to have an audience. And some people have it easier than others, but in essence, NFTs have afforded me and many other people opportunities that we never would have had in the past. So in and of itself, that's enough for me. And I mean, I understand the negative aspects of this practice and this field, but I can only go by my own experience and the feedback I've had from literally hundreds of other people that have managed to do okay and to be able to make a living from what they care about most, which is art. Finished.
Thank you so much for that. Sho, I'd like to come over to you now to tell us a little bit about your journey into this space and what it means for you from a business perspective, and even some of your thoughts on what Kenny just shared as well.
Thank you very much, and I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I echo a lot of the sentiment. I'm a kind of a funny person because I always wanted to be an artist, and I was an art major in school and had a lifelong passion to be an artist, and had parents that actually mentioned that it's better for me to have a professional career. So I ended up in finance for a very long time, and was in multiple roles previously, and in my last role, the head of finance of Artsy. And I always loved the aspect of democratization for art. I always felt like that the market has so much more potential than what it is. It's very exclusive right now and very inaccessible. It's beneficial to the top 1% of people in the world. And to me, it was always interesting to think about concept and model of how we can bring an exciting community together of people who are very interested in the space, but who can actually participate in a non-judgmental and in a fun way. And so this was one of the key driving points of creating my companies for So What as well as XVERSO. And I think that the space of NFT is very, very exciting right now because it provides an opportunity to utilize new medium and technology in ways that we were never able to do before. So I'm very, very excited about the space and about the technology innovation. But obviously there are a lot of limitations as well, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that today as well. But generally, I'm very excited because it goes towards the democratization of access, which I'm very interested in.
Thanks for that. And Kennedy, I was excited to have you participate in today's discussion because, as an artist whose work I believe I'm pretty familiar with, I've been following what you've been doing for the past several years and your evolution, and congratulations on everything. What was attractive to you about NFTs in terms of you are, I hate using the word traditional artist because I don't even know what traditional artist means when people say that. But for the sake of today's conversation, I will say a traditional artist is an artist that is not making NFTs. What was the attraction for you, and why did you dip your toe into this water?
Thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, I'd say, my practice is based in sculpture and painting, and that's, where I spend most of my days. But I also work in performance and installation work, and have been doing that. I kind of gift that to myself every year. And one of those installations was a VR project that I started in 2015. I created a kind of a world inside one of my paintings that was supposed to use technology as a conduit to a metaphysical experience. So creating realms and creating spaces within my work for people to have more immersive bodily experience. And some of the things that I wanted to do in that project, the technology wasn't ready for yet. And that was something that I kept running into with VR and AR. And I also ran out of money for the project. And I collaborated with this incredible artist, Jesus Calderon, who's a digital artist based in Chicago. And we started just talking about that project, but even in that moment of us like translating it into the digital space, like how I can more thoroughly and immediately affect my audience, my viewers, and create like an environment for them was really interesting to me. So the project never happened. But it was something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And I originally came to NFTs almost as using it as a proof of concept, because it was something that I wanted to reapproach again. So I could create this world, I could share it with people, and I didn't have to wait to like send out emails and decks and all that stuff and just kind of like chase people around for it. And just like, it was just nice to put the idea in the world in some capacity. And also for me, I used that opportunity because when I first started finding out about NFTs, I felt like it was really hard to understand. There were so many different things. I think all the press stuff, it was just really hard to navigate. And I know, for me, the only way to do something is to like touch it and do it. So I started making them and working on them and understanding what the community is like and what the conversation is like and what the marketing is like around it. And for me, something that I've always been extremely passionate about is my community, which is artists. And I have a lot of same sentiments as Kenny does. I mean, at this point, I don't know how much NFTs have to do with art, but that doesn't change anything at all for me about how I feel about them and their relativity in our society. I'm very excited about them as a tool. I'm excited about them as a tool for how we integrate and how we use them within society, from like healthcare to real estate, and how they can contractually and transparently make great things happen for everybody. So yeah, that was like one of the main things for me that really drew me there. And I think just also, as an artist, I'm always looking for ways to protect my work. So I'm really interested in, I don't know if this is a possibility, but I'm interested in like copyrighting all my images and making NFTs for all my pieces. I'd love to have some kind of royalty for all my pieces. As a younger artist, I don't know what my life is going to be like in 30 years. And I know a lot of older artists who don't have protection, who don't have care for themselves. So I love the idea of having other ways of continuing to make income and to care for my work and take pressure off of work. And then also maybe potentially almost as a certificate of authenticity in some way. So really, I've always kind of thought about them as a tool in that way.
Thanks for sharing that. And, the word community has come up multiple times. And truth be told, I was the first one to bring it up, I suppose. But everyone has mentioned that word in some way. And I want to kind of spend a moment there. And I'll come back to you, Tam, because my understanding is that building communities around NFTs is something that you're really focused on. And maybe you could speak a little bit more about what that actually means.
Yes. So the word community, I think, is thrown a lot in the Web2 world, like in the world of social media, because we spent like so many countless hours trying to like build our Instagram profiles and trying to reach an audience. Like all of the artists, who like post every day and post about their work, they're just trying to like have somebody to resonate their message with, and hopefully that translates into a market. But there's no way to monetize from that in a direct way. So what this Web3 movement is all about is about taking that audience that you've built, because like our profiles are really like built, people can just look at them. There's not much interaction going on there besides like liking and potentially commenting. But that's not a community. A community, like we need to translate these audiences that we've built into a community. And a community is sort of like the inner circle of an artist or the inner circle of a gallery, the extension of like the people who you collaborate, your best collectors, like people who are invested in your success because they see your success as my success. So in a community, people have roles. They're not passive. I think one of the best examples to envision like what a community should look like is activism. So if you think of like an activist movement, you think of like a very decentralized, like non-hierarchical organization in which there is leadership, but everybody is there because almost voluntarily and because they believe in some sort of cause and they're willing to like work towards that cause. And that's how these communities are forming in Web3. So I think, art is like the window in which we see the rest of the industries and the rest of the world, because artists by nature, most of them are not necessarily motivated by money. So it's they're not the easiest people to corrupt. They're there literally for the love of art. So if I'm a fan of an artist, I'm gonna be part of their community. I'm gonna use my skills to help them continue to deliver their message. And there is absolutely no success in crypto, whether it's NFTs or any other kind of project, without this idea of community. Like the most successful projects always come together with a community. It's an integral part of this art movement. So right now, like what we're trying to do at Rally, like we call our project Crypto for Creative Communities, because crypto, like all of you well said, is just the tool, the infrastructure that powers this idea of assets and value and money and going in circles. Because if if I hold your NFT, like we're both part owners of that NFT, the creator who's always getting royalties, and me as a collector, we both have a shared asset. Same with a social token. If I hold your coin, it's not money going in one direction, but it's money going in a circle. It's a completely different mental map of how to think about an economy. And it's a business model that talks about both fans and collectors and people in your ecosystem, as well as the artist or the creator monetizing together from those same digital assets.
Thanks for sharing that. And Sho, I'd like to come back to you and sort of get your take on that. How does community, play a role in what you're doing in this space?
And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Tam, because I really echo your sentiment. And I totally believe in the concept of community. This is also why we created XVERSO. And I think also that the term community is very much overused, right? Because what does community mean? It's almost like kind of a word that technology platforms use for almost every kind of sort of like e-commerce place. But I think I truly support the view of Tam to say, well, community means people who are really actively supporting you, actively supporting an artist, actively supporting the mechanisms of making this community work. And I think this is something that we really believe in, and something that we have experienced in a level where actually, I think, Dexter, you were also part of it when we had our first move from New York to Silicon Valley, and we really experienced the support of the communities there to make XVERSO what happen. And I think it's something that it's almost like, I feel almost like the concept of community on commerce is a contradiction, because I think naturally, you cannot build a community for commerce. I think you have to build a community and create commerce of it. And if that happens, it becomes very organic, and it's something that is naturally much, much stronger than just being on a platform, looking at some NFTs and deciding to buy something or not. And I think if this is, if it's something that comes from the within and something that you believe in, and you believe in the marketplace, you trust the marketplace, you trust the people, I think it becomes a completely different dynamic. And this is something that we are hoping to accomplish because with XVERSO.
Thank you. Kenny and Kennedy, and I was always like saying to myself, I know I'm going to call Kennedy and Kennedy. I know I was going to mess that up at some point today, but I haven't messed it up yet. So good. So Kenny and Kennedy, as the two artists, I mean, you're much more than artists, but as the two artists here today, I'm curious to hear your frank thoughts on whether or not artists who are in the NFT space are going to find themselves subjected to the same issues that the art world typically has. They're the winners and the losers, the people who have all of the, who get all the collectors and the people who get very few. I mean, what's your perspective on that? I mean, I've talked to quite a few artists who are in the space, and they came in wide-eyed with all of these like thoughts that they were just going to like make a ton of money and be wildly successful, and they've kind of found themselves in the same place they were with their other work, but now they're in this digital space.
I'll start. If you don't mind, I'll speak to that, because I have not made any money off of NFTs at all. I've lost money actually, and I think that I think that no matter what you do in this space or wherever you go, you're going to have to put like a lot of work into like the marketing and the conversation and the execution of the work. Like that's just a part of it. I can't speak about the same issues in the art world. And I feel like that's one of the strangest things too, is like the multiple, like comparing this space to the art world ever is like just so weird to me, because they're just totally different things and they're different conversations. And if anything, they're kind of running in parallel, like, you know, around each other in parallel in some way. But I haven't made any money off of my NFTs, and you know, I'm there because I'm interested in these conversations and like the kind of understanding what's happening and seeing how maybe even not in this moment, maybe not in an art NFT that I'll be present in it, but like, you know, making longer term projects. And you know, if you're coming, I think if you're ever coming to anything for the money, just for the money, it's never really going to work, period. So, you know, I'm really excited about technology. I'm really excited about consciousness in the brain and how we are, you know, challenging different ways and how we understand it and how we can engage with it more. So that's kind of, you know, been my experience with it.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kenny.
Well, firstly, I would like to just go addressing the issue of community. The word community is about as abused as the word important in the traditional fine art world. And it's bandied around with really a lack of thought, I think, and appreciation. But for me, personally speaking, I think some of the changes I've noticed in relationship to NFTs versus traditional art world, there's been a conflation with the artist and the audience. So typically you have the gallery as a buffer. I've seen situations that I've been in personally where a gallery will sell a work of yours. You don't even know who the owner is of the work. Sometimes they never share that information. A lot of times galleries' interest could be at crossroads with the interests of an artist. But in any event, what I would say is that, I mean, I often say that I never get to speak about art because I work in the art world. And I have to say, like, whereas the fine art world lives in Instagram in terms of social media, the tech art world is in Twitter and Discord. And I created a kind of parody profile picture series of NFTs. I mean, right now the market is for NFTs are 70% what's called like collectible NFTs. I'm really excited about people like Kennedy getting involved, and Bjarne Melgaard and Ro Etheridge, and there's a wonderful artist in Berlin, Sarah Friend. You never hear people talk about the art and the artist. You never hear the content discussed, never, in relationship to NFTs. And the kind of animosity that it's a defense mechanism for people to be fearful of change. And I found the pushback to be, I mean, I'm used to provoking people in my writing about the machinations of the art world, but nothing prepared me for the animosity that I faced in the past year and a half since I've been involved in NFTs. I've made digital videos back in the early 90s, but I do find it super interesting in Discord, where I appear every day and speak to the people that have bought this series of NFTs that I made, which they're made to critique like series like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and which are all male figures. And I think they're almost euphemistic in the imagery or pejorative in a way. So I created a series of NFTs that cross the boundaries of different identities in society. But every day I converse with the people that own them, and they weren't terribly expensive, and they're meant to be an entree into an arts club to get access to my writing for a fraction of the cost of ArtNet. And the level of engagement is absolutely awe-inspiring. It is it's fundamentally changed the way that I think about what I do, and the inspiration and the give and take, the critiques, the criticisms. I mean, it's incredibly dynamic, and it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. And when I had an opening in Berlin a week and a half ago at Untitled Chapter for this show that I had, it was an NFT show, but you would never know it, because I think also it's important to know that an NFT can physically take the form of a painting, a tapestry. You're buying a digital file, and the thing could be outputted in any fashion, but the levels of engagement normally, I think openings for me are the most stultifying, horrific, cringe-worthy experience. They're just very difficult for me personally. But at this opening in Berlin, there were coders, mathematicians, critics, philosophers, and there were conversations, the likes of which I've never seen in my career. So, you know, there's a lot of criticism being thrown around, and people never focus on the positives. Good art being made. There's no free lunch. No one's going to walk into the space and make a lot of money. That's just not the way it is, and it's nor is it the way it should be. I mean, like I said, it's a slow burning process, and I just think people can incrementally do well for them, better for themselves than in the existing system. I went to the Art Institute of Chicago last month to do critiques. It would never occur to me to tell an artist to go try to find a gallery to represent them. People have to take things into their own hands and do it themselves. And NFTs, like has been said, are tools, and they can be helpful to artists that cultivate an audience and try to make the best of the circumstances.
Kenny,
Thank
can
you.
you, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you talk
No, no, go
a little bit about the show in Berlin and how the NFTs and the physical objects kind of work together and what that looks like and how you kind of explain that conceptually?
Well, I could just so happen to share my screen if you want to see two quick pictures.
Go for it.
Okay. But I mean, again, like, you know, you have someone like David Hockney who said that crypto is, now you see my kids and I won't be able to get this image to move. There it is. So you have David Hockney, who just had an exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts in London and of iPad drawings. And he said crypto is for small time criminals and NFTs are, you know, not legitimate. Yet, if people say to me, what's an NFT? I often use David Hockney as an example. He may hate them, but he makes them. I would rather own the digital file upon which his iPad drawing was made and then determine myself how I would output it. So in this exhibition, there's an installation on the floors, the wall, the ceiling, the walls, metadata. Metadata is the information about the information in any given NFT. And you see there's video, there's a photograph, and there's this tapestry with Mother Teresa where, I mean, there was a book written by the critic Christopher Hitchens that Mother Teresa was kind of opportunistically portraying poverty in an effort to increase her missionary zeal to convert people to Christianity. So there was a tapestry that I had made in Albania. Everything in this show, there's a photograph, there are videos, and there was even paintings. They all derived from digital files. So I think that it's very important to dispel some of the criticisms, gratuitous, I may say, about NFTs, that you can only see it on your computer or your wallet. This is a sculpture called a Monument to Failure of me covered in birdshit, and it's a 3D print in powdered bronze. There are images where I made a play on, in Berlin was the first Dada show, and I changed these historic posters into metadata with computer code in the background. So again, like, you know, it was an effort just to kind of dispel this notion that, am I done sharing my screen? Yeah. Yep. I wanted to just dispel the notion that NFTs simply are, you know, that's one of the ways that people dismiss them, that they're only computer files. So, and I'm working on a few other, for me, it's about, I mean, writing, visuals, they're all for me like an intellectual environment on some level. And yeah, I mean, as far as the imagination can go, that's what you can do with a digital file, anything.
Thank you for that. You know, it actually answers a question that came in from a painter who basically was asking, can you explain how NFTs can be used for people who are not interested in working exclusively with digital files and digital work? So I think that kind of was a good way to cover that. I also want to address some of the other questions that have come in. We don't need to wait till the very end. We still have some other things I'd love to discuss, but there was a question that says, how can crypto /NFTs /DAO, and I wonder if this is someone who's like conflating too many different things into like one category, but how can crypto, NFTs, and DAOs help create access to artists and to open up new avenues for artists to have more collectors or possible fans? I don't know if that question is clear, but Tam, maybe you might want to jump in on that, and also Sho, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. So I guess, you know, first thing I want to unpack is whether or not this I'm not criticizing the person who asked the question, but whether or not this person should be conflating crypto, NFTs, and DAO in this sort of like in that way.
So the way I would interpret that, putting everything in the same category, it's literally just saying like blockchain technology, right? So, you know, crypto, NFTs, and DAOs, these are all like tools that are based on blockchain technology, or even crypto philosophy or blockchain philosophy. But if you look at the technology itself, blockchain is literally a block of data that is chained, and it goes in a linear way. So when an artist creates an NFT, that's like the genesis block in a blockchain. And each one of those blocks represents a new transaction. That means that the same person who's creating that NFT, who's minting that NFT and made that art, is always going to be the source. And every time that there's a new transaction in the blockchain, all of the funds or the percentages or the royalties, however you want to program that smart contract, is going back to the source, is going back to that genesis block. And I think it's really important to understand that, because NFT technology specifically is art. Like, it could be a digital file itself. It's also the actual transaction. So what you can compare it to a bank transfer or a Zelle or a Venmo, but that happens within the technology itself. And it's also transparent in the ledger, in the blockchain. Everybody can see, you know, which wallet is in which block and like where that digital file is at. So it's acting like, we have to wrap that it's acting as three technologies in one. So right now, you know, if you sell a piece in a gallery, you know, you're the artist, you made that piece, but you're not owning that chain of transactions and monetization, etc. And Kenny very well said it in one of his, you know, whether an artist is represented by a gallery and they sell an NFT that they minted, they have to pay the gallery and not the other way around. So they are owning that whole chain of monetization. I think it's really important for artists to understand the concept of autonomy when it comes to monetizing their own careers. So, you know, that was like NFTs. The answer for crypto is money that it doesn't move in a linear way, but like I said, moves in a circle. Like if you hold Bitcoin and I hold Bitcoin, it glues us into a community. That's why some of these communities are kind of culty, because like if we both hold this asset, all of a sudden we're both like really invested in this asset. So that's why artists like Jen Stark or Chantal Martin own community tokens and social tokens for they're giving them for free to their fans and collectors and supporters, so that they're glued together, that has an asset that becomes loyalty. And then DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, are like the evolved version of these communities where participants have voting power. So it's not like run by one person, but everybody who has an NFT or everybody who has a social and community token within that DAO can vote on initiatives. So if you are the New York Academy of the Arts and you want to vote on the next year curriculum or who are going to be your guest lecturers, like you would use those tokens, and whoever holds those tokens gets to vote on initiatives. So it's not unilateral decisions being made by someone who owns 51%. It's like the new company structures of crypto or this whole movement, which is all about decentralization. So all of this is just giving artists an insane amount of autonomy, new tools, technology that is self-executing for them to just own their careers in a much more meaningful way and own their relationship to their audience.
Thank you for that. So, you know, if we were on an airplane right now, I would say we probably have been flying at about 36,000 feet. And I get us down to about 15,000 feet, a little bit closer to the ground here for people who have joined. I mean, right now we have almost 200 people who've joined us, right? I would say without even polling, more than half of those people are artists. I see some questions coming in that are specifically around how traditional artists can interact or create NFTs and sort of the implication for artists, in that regard. So I'm just gonna ask a couple of these questions, and then if you feel like you want to jump in and answer them, you can. I also realized I was moving my paper around too much, so I'll stop doing that. So this is a very basic question, right? But I want to ask it anyway. Can any artist make an NFT, and who creates them? So that's a question that's coming. So Kenny, maybe you can jump in there.
Well, I made the comment once that it's so easy to mint NFTs that everyone and their grandmother will be an artist. And then I actually took a picture of my grandma, minted her, and sold her as an NFT and let her go very cheaply. But I would say yes, anyone can make an NFT, and you've heard a lot of issues about the costs. So if you decide to use Ethereum, which is the most prevalent, but also has adverse environmental issues, but there's a new platform which is free, and it mints the NFT. It creates the smart contract for you for free, and it's called studio.manifold.xyz. And Manifold is, I've called them like the Picasso of smart contract writers, coders, and this is, again, this helps really make it a lot easier for artists. And if anyone has any questions, since I was just minting NFTs from my exhibition in Berlin, I'm happy to share like a fact sheet on how you could facilitate it and make it a little easier. It's still a little bit difficult for the weary and leery. But anyway, so yes, anyone could do it. Anyone should do it. But again, like, this isn't like a magic pill or a panacea to career, flourishing career success. I've been in the art world for 30 plus years, and I've clawed my way to having an audience. So, you can't just mint an NFT. If you mint it and it goes to OpenSea, you'll drown in the OpenSea. You have to, like everything, through social media, through networks of friends and relationships, you need to cultivate an audience within which to promote your, and again, like, I don't care, I don't want to talk about, I don't even want to mention the MONEY word. I just want to talk about the art. So if you're having a hard, band together with your friends. The tragedy of COVID, of which I've been a long-term sufferer, and the shift online to commerce has created a wealth of empty storefronts in every city across the globe. Band together with friends, take over spaces, create hybrid exhibitions, mixing NFTs and other works, and then just try to sell it the way you would lemonade on the corner. But there's more tools now to make it easier and cheaper. If you notice, like, I'm in Europe now, and when I wake up in the morning, it's the gas, which are the fee that you have to pay to mint an NFT, is radically cheaper than at other high traffic times. There's an app that you can find on Google that tells you when gas is the cheapest. So you just have to be conscientious and industrious, and opportunities. Like, I never made a living in my art until I was 59 years old. I'm not a spring chicken. And, that's not what it was all about, because if I never sold another piece of art again, I wouldn't change a single aspect of my life at all. But it's really, it's nice. I'm not going to deny it, but it's about the content and about communicating and expressing yourself, and that's it.
Thank you. So I want to actually, Sho, I'd love to get your opinion on that. So it's sort of the same question, like, how can artists go about minting NFTs? People who've never done it before. You're a new platform. It's connected to that as well. So maybe you can speak a bit about it.
Obviously, the concept of minting is a concept that is taking care of all the technology platforms and engineering platforms in the background. And obviously, we offer these type of services as well. But I think that the question that was underneath behind it is, just because you produce an NFT doesn't mean it's the end all be all of, now all of a sudden you start selling artworks like crazy, right? It's just a different form. It's just another tool. And I think to Kenny's point, it requires marketing, it requires social media. And this is also part of the services that we are offering, because we are really want to promote the artists and really want to really highlight the creativity that's behind the process. And so for us, it's very important. It's beyond the minting of the NFT is something obviously that requires heavy software background and requires more work for our platform, for example. But the way more important component of it is really to promote the art and promote the artist. And I think this is something that we want to combine on our platform.
Thank you for that. I actually, now there's so many great questions here. So now I have to sort of like toggle between my objectives here. So Kennedy, I would love for you to prepare to share the NFT that we were looking at before we started the discussion. I just think it would be great to look at one of the things that you've created. But then in the meantime, I'd also like to put this out there, to the panel. There was a question that was directed to you, Tam, but I think, maybe others could answer it as well. Does every artist now need to create an NFT? Even if they have nothing to do with digital art and have been creating paintings for the past 30 years. It's from a gentleman named Magnus. So what's your take on that? Does every artist now need to create an NFT?
No, I don't think they do. I think that this is a movement. I think this is an art movement, just like Impressionism was an art movement. And that, to like previous questions, is why it's causing so much controversy. You go to museums and you get the tours and they're like, oh, at the time they were considered crazy, and now they're like the most significant art movement of the time. I think it's exactly the same, but it's opt-in, opt-out. I think the majority of people who are translating or transacting like from Web 2 to Web 3, like artists that are creating NFTs, is compelled and passionate and curious to go down this insane rabbit hole that is, blockchain technology and NFT movements and all of that. I think that if it doesn't, if you're not curious about it, or you don't think it accommodates to your practice in any way, then you should definitely not do it. Same as, social media was like opt-in, opt-out. It did help a lot of show their work, and it helps all of us curators in new ways. But it's, I also go to studio visits and fairs. Maybe it's less accessible, but there's other ways to do it. Now, I do think that there is a way for artists whose practice is not social at all. Like if you were, if you're a painter and you're in your studio all day long and you really don't care about, you never cared about social media, and you don't care, your work has nothing to do with social practices or engaging communities, but you would like, or you are attracted to this idea of royalties, and you believe that this should happen, and you would like to protect your work, as Kennedy said, then you could potentially join a DAO or join an organization in which they mint NFTs for artists who opt in, and then you receive the royalties. And by this, I mean like NFT digital version of your physical work that also serve as a certificate of authenticity for that physical work, meaning you not being able to sell that physical NFT transaction at auction houses and different galleries who want to control secondary markets and have the artists be protected with royalties for secondary markets. And I know there's been a lot of like legal incentives to try to create royalties for artists, but that is not a self-executing technology. Like you don't want to be in a lawsuit with a collector. That makes no sense. So NFTs protect your work in a way. Transaction is automatic and you receive passive income in an automatic way. So it does make sense to do it, whether it's in your own initiative of building that community and understanding the technology, or uniting with an organization of artists or with a gallery that will do it for you. And there's so much room to build, a DAO where curators help artists mint and, so there's a lot of room for building in that direction.
Thank you so much for that. Kenny, you may still be sharing your screen. I'm not sure. Just want to make sure you're not.
Yeah, I love it. I can share this. I'd also like to speak to what Tam was just speaking about. So for me personally, what I'm excited about artists who are very creative and they're not just painting or they're not just drawing, but they're really looking at how our society is created and how we're doing things. We're interested in the humanities and culture. And for me, I'm really interested in artists coming into this space and coming up with new ideas of how we can utilize NFTs or how we can utilize the space versus just like, oh, I'm gonna make this piece. Like if I was a director and I made a short film and I sold it as different NFTs and I sold it out to a group of people and then we sold it to HBO, everybody would get paid. So I'm writing a graphic novel right now and I'm going to be creating a whole world around this graphic novel and a dialogue before the graphic novel comes out on Discord. So we can create a lot of enthusiasm and conversation and so many different things from this one project. I can make a million different NFTs. I can make a movie from it and I can sell all of that as crypto. And already have a group of people who are enthusiastic and excited about it and understand the project. That for me as an artist is really exciting. So this project I'm about to show you is something that I did with a musician named Musego. We took one of my paintings from, sorry, here you go. We took one of my paintings from 2017. Are you guys seeing my screen right now?
Yes.
Right. See this thing. Musego has this thing called synesthesia where you can see, when you hear sound, you see images. So we showed him the image of this piece. This was a CNC scan of one of the sculptures, and Jesus and I are continuing to work on every project together and have an ongoing working relationship. So it's been really fun building with him. And you know, like they were mentioning before, you know, I'm not someone who works with technology or computer. I barely get on my computer. I do everything from my phone. I'm not that person, but I love getting to be with people who are the best at what they do and can help me expand on ideas. So this was a project Musego and I did together. It's called Purity. And we created a world inside one of my sculptures. So if any of you guys are painters or sculptors and are interested in how you can translate this, this is a nice idea, a nice way you can do it.
Great.
So,
Thank
you know,
you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. I'll stop sharing now. But you know, this was so fun for me because there were so many different parts of my practice that were integrated into one place. You know, the plant side, I did a project called Feel 4 in 2018, and I very often use organic materials with my projects, and performative work with different performers and to make spaces and make that happen. And you know, that was really fun for me to do here. And yeah.
So here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to get through all of these questions in the chat. These people are really coming with some good ones. So in no particular order. What about more eco-friendly cryptocurrencies like Polygon? Do you think that it's a feasible option when entering because they don't have the same audience and leverage as Ethereum? Anybody want to take that question? Please, Tam.
I can take that question. I love this topic. You know, as a curator, I've like taken pride on some of my projects for working with art ability. Like I'm based in Miami, and it was like one of the first things I noticed when I did studio visits here, like how much artists care about the environment, water rising, and all the challenges that we face here. So when I did the project at Showfields, it was all based on sustainability, and we made, you know, everyone who was part of the project like accountable for sustainable practices. So when I got really interested in NFTs, I almost didn't want to get into it because of the computational power and electric output that, you know, minting anything has. And through my research, I found like a few platforms that are eco-friendly for different ways. And that's like one of the reasons why I joined Rally, because Rally is eco-friendly. It's built on a side chain. It's not built on what we call an L1 mainnet like Ethereum or, well, Bitcoin, you can really build on top of it, but it also creates an insane amount of electrical output. So Polygon, Solana, there's a few options to mint NFTs and social and community tokens in ways that don't have more impact on the environment than this call. So that's like one of the major criticisms that the art world has on NFTs and the whole movement. But at the same time, the art world has chosen Ethereum as like the token to build on and the space to use, which is kind of ironic in my opinion. Now, I do know that Ethereum as well as Bitcoin and all of those main protocols are working really hard, and like really smart people are trying to make the technology more eco-friendly by changing their protocols in ways that are super. But if you care about that, there's like insane amount of literature to go over. There's like the new Ethereum coming out, which is supposed to be more eco-friendly. However, in general, I do think that as artists, there are platforms that are eco-friendly and built for artists and their values. And two, the whole space is going to become more eco-friendly as it grows and scales. In general, I think that's just like the internet in the early days, that you know, it was hard to dial up and connect and it was limited. Like that's the whole space in crypto right now. It's in diapers. And I think the marketing of NFTs and the whole vision around it is a million light years further than the actual technology and infrastructure that is sustaining the whole space. It's still being built. So there's more people talking about it than people actually building. But it will become more sustainable is what I think.
Thank you. Here's a question that's actually connected to one that almost made me laugh out loud. But anyway, this question is, if I own an NFT, can I do anything I want with it? In other words, print out the file to hang on my wall, print it on a t-shirt to wear, bring it out as a tablecloth. They say, I understand how selling the NFT can return money to the artist, but what about these printed out artworks? Do I just have the freedom to do whatever I want?
I could say when you buy a Jasper Johns, you don't have the right to print it on a pair of boxer shorts. So some artists, some NFT artists retain the copyright. Most famously, Larva Labs, who created the CryptoPunks. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, all of my artworks are available for free on Vimeo and YouTube, and I could care less what anyone did with it, more or less. So it's pretty much up to the maker. But as far as your personal use, by all means, you can print it. There are dedicated devices. There'll be more and more dedicated hardware devices. Like there's a company, Infinite Objects, which creates these devices where you upload a video to and you can have it on display all the time. Like you saw in my exhibition, you could print it on you could send the file to China and have it painted, or where you can get paintings made for peanuts. So, you know, in essence, it's up to the user, the collector, the owner, how they display it. But as far as commercializing it, it's up to the artist when they sell the NFT, what they're selling. That's shut everybody up.
Thank you so much. So obviously that deals with a little bit of the intellectual property question. But then there was the part of another question that almost made me laugh out loud was someone said, Kennedy, that was fantastic. But as a collector, then what would they do with it? And it's kind of a rhetorical question because, you know, you can do whatever, I guess, do what you want. But what's your response to that?
Well, yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, you could they make screens for them. You can put them on your screen. You can do whatever. As the artist, I didn't necessarily think about that. The way that we sold that NFT was we had the original NFT, which was like the full video and sound. And then we also broke it down into 3 different parts where they were like shorter versions of the experience, and images as well. So you can do whatever you want with it.
If I could just say, like, what do you do with the Vito Acconci video you bought in 1969? What do you
Yeah.
do with the Bill Viola video you buy? I mean, what do you do with the Matthew Barney video you buy? What do you do with the video? You put it on a screen.
That's the art answer, but the crypto answer would be that there is utility to some NFTs, and some of it because of the utility of NFTs. We haven't discussed, but it's part of that future.
Can you tell us more about that? Tam?
Please.
So just like the Bored Apes Yacht Club is literally your pass to a club in which people meet and network and share business ideas, and they also get to vote by being on that club on like future initiatives. For example, the CryptoPunks just signed a deal with UTA, United Talent Agency, to create either a movie or a series with a Hollywood studio about the CryptoPunks. And the people who own those punks get to vote on like what that deal looks like, because it's directly going to affect those digital assets. So it's literally intellectual property, which can be used for anything and hang it and show it. But you could also, create a movie out of it, create a show out of it. You could make it a pass to a physical world. You could, like, your work, Kennedy, is like, and it could be like a metaverse room on its own, where there's performances in there and people come for this kind of talks will happen in the metaverse one day. So when you think about NFTs utility, you really have to think about the behavior that comes from the world of gaming. It's almost like if gaming and fine arts are clashing into this like super continent where a lot of those behaviors are translating into NFT utility for the movement. Like avatars are digital. That's the utility. Like Twitter now looks into your wallet, and if you have the NFT, you can use it as your profile picture. If you don't, you're just like right-click saving it, but you shouldn't be, in theory, part of that community. So NFTs can be used for a million things, including tickets, including degrees for universities or for classes, or proof of attendance protocols. And, there's a lot of utility that can come from NFTs. We're just scratching the surface.
Thank you for that. So I have a question I want to throw your way. What are your thoughts on, big media trying to cash in on NFTs? This person saying it seems like they're scared of the democratization of the new media and what it could mean in this new landscape. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's kind of a difficult question to ask, I think, or a difficult question to respond to, right? Because I think anything that is anything that's generating that much revenue as it has last year, and it continues to grow and it's new, I think a lot of large corporations, including big media, are interested in it. So it's hard to say. I think it's very difficult to respond to this question, for me at least.
No problem. Kenny, who's buying your art at Nigel Drexler in Berlin? Are these existing buyers from the traditional art world, these completely new buyers with a crypto background, or is no one buying?
Knock on wood, I've sold some work, and it's a mixture. It's been traditional collectors. There's an incredible museum based in Karlsruhe in Germany called ZKM, and it was founded as a media museum, and it's probably the most significant institute for fostering the work and collecting the work of technology, artists employing technology. And I think all contemporary museums, from the Museum of Modern Art in the Whitney and the New Museum in New York, where I live, to museums across the world that are showcasing living contemporary artists, it's their obligation. They are compelled to dip in and collect digital works. We're in a renaissance of digital art. I mean, I've been making digital art since before many of you were born. And I never would even dream of referring to myself as an artist. There was no market for this type of work, or very minuscule. And one of the benefits of this, again, like I don't care about the financial side to discuss right now, but this is really, it's a whole new generation. It's a new audience of buyers on the crypto side. But again, like the ZKM Museum has been around for 30 years and they've bought one of my works. And traditional collectors that are more open-minded have bought work. So, I mean, I'm not really obsessed about that. And I'm just grateful and appreciative for the fact that at this stage of my life, I've opened up this new chapter, and many other people have corresponded with me that they've had similar opportunities and experiences. So I think that, it can't, there's so much pigeonholing in the world. There's so much stupid sweeping generalizations that are made in the art world, in the tech world and beyond. And I just think, we have to be rational and go slowly and look for the positive sides in this, and they're manifold.
Thank you. It's a question I want to throw your way, Kennedy. What's the best way for an absolute beginner to take their first steps into the NFT world? And what do those steps look like? I mean, I know, like you mentioned, that the way you learn to do things is by doing them. And I'm sort of similar in that way. But without going into like excruciating detail, can you just kind of like talk about like what you know in terms of getting started and creating your first NFT?
Yeah, honestly, just do one. Really. Just do it. And you can choose whatever you want to do for it. It's really, it's really, really hard to understand everything unless you go through the process and understand like what the conversations are like, and just, doing your research, getting on conversations like this. But really, more than anything, I think just making one will do a lot for you to understand it.
Right. And those kinds of like basic tutorials, or like how to mint an NFT. I mean, anyone with access to Google and YouTube can probably like, figure out like the most basic way to do it. Or you can go on different platforms, might have like how-tos, right? So that's there. But obviously creating or minting an NFT is just one part of a whole other host of things that you would then have to do to get people looking at it, interested in it, be part of these conversations on Twitter and Discord, what have you. The questions come in that actually something that I think about all the time. And that question is, what happens if some of these big platforms like OpenSea, what if they just go down, they just disappear? Like what happens to, for the artists? I mean, Tam, maybe you have some thoughts on that. Can you guys hear me? Did we freeze?
You're back.
Okay, great.
I could just say
Tam,
that.
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Right now,
Yes.
in 99% of the cases, the smart contract is on the blockchain, and the visual component of an NFT is stored on either IPFS, interplanetary file sharing system, or Arweave. And the fact is that people have to pay to store these visual files on the cloud. So for sure, in 2 to 5 years, there's going to be a whole hell of a lot of NFTs when you open your wallet, and you're going to find blank rectangles. So again, we're in the embryonic stage of this sphere of activity, and there are going to be so many problems, unforeseen and foreseen, glitches in contracts that are stuck on the blockchain and are there for perpetuity. And there's going to be a lot of problems in the future where artworks are going to go missing, for sure. It's inevitable. So, it's a risk. There are risks in life, and there are plenty of risks in this field, which is rife with a lot of problems.
I would add 2 things to that. One, on the pessimistic side, is that any digital technology, like museums have struggled forever to like safeguard these technologies, like artists that created videos in Betamax and VHS, like museums don't really have a way to like keep up with those obsolete technologies, and they don't have departments and resources to like transfer them into like more relevant files on a continuous basis. So that's not a new problem. But however, as a collector, or even as an artist, if you own any crypto assets, whether it's currency or NFT, that autonomy part of things, that by being bankless and not having to go through like centralized platforms, means that you also have a huge amount of responsibility. So you are your own bank. So you should really only keep your NFTs in these marketplaces if they are for sale, if they are, actively in the marketplace. If you want to safeguard your NFT, like if you paid $40,000 for an Ether Rock or millions of dollars for a CryptoPunk, like they should be in a hardware wallet on a ledger. Like they shouldn't be just like on your Nifty gateway or wherever you bought it. Like you should safeguard all of your crypto assets that are not for sale, but for holding. And there's, a lot to read about that as well.
Or on a zip drive and you're safe.
So we're down to the final couple of minutes here. So I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to share any sort of like final thoughts you have on this subject. And it could be perhaps something you think are misconceptions that people may have about NFTs, where you may have addressed that already, or perhaps something you're looking forward to seeing happen in the space that has yet to happen. I'd love to hear from each of you in that regard.
I'll start. I think that.
Shall I call on you?
Can you hear me? Is my sound working? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I
Oh,
can hear you now. Yeah,
sorry.
I can hear you.
Can you say that question one more time, Dexter? Sorry.
So sort of share any you have about maybe it's what you're looking forward to seeing happen in the space that has yet to happen, or something you've learned along the way that you'd like to share.
So much of my practice is really based in risk taking, in the work that I do with my body and the things that I do with my work. And I think that, like, as an artist, a lot of what I'm doing is fucking something up until it's right and it makes sense to me. And I just think, like, what Kenny's gone through over the past year with just people going against him and giving him shit about new endeavors. I don't think that's fair. And I don't think that artists should even be thinking about that. I think you should do something because you're excited about it and you're interested in it. And the truth is, the art world's been really slow to come to this, but like, as Kenny noticed, the Dadaists would be the first people on this. And I think it takes, it takes a lot of confidence and trust in your desires and your interests. So I like to encourage artists to not only approach this space as an opportunity to create new art, but like how they can contribute to it and how they can challenge it.
Thank you. And so what are you looking forward to seeing happening in this space?
I think like what I love about the space is obviously the blockchain aspect and the security and trust that is created through NFT and blockchain, and something that I'm super excited about. But at the same time, while we're seeing a lot of progress, we still, while we're digging into the innovation aspect of it, we are still very early, and there's a lot of issues that still need to be resolved. And I think, for example, one aspect is, I think, coming back to the question of what happens if one of the really big platforms are going to bust today, then what's going to happen? Just because we have royalties and commission in the smart contract doesn't mean that it's actually going to be honored unless the platform honors the smart contract. So there's still opportunities on actually how you can bypass ways of royalties and commissions. And I think there's not really, I know I understand it's a little bit against the concept of DAO, but if there was some more regulation around security of the transfer and the custodianship, I think these would be areas that I think a lot of people are looking into, and something also that we are very much interested in. So there's obviously is a lot of pros for the technology innovation, but also it comes with issues around just a general kind of security areas like that.
Thank you. And Tam, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think one one of the things that we really didn't touch upon too much, but it's important, it's the idea of decentralization. So you know, the same way we went like from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance is because of, you know, decentralized information and decentralized wealth that used to be owned by like the church and the monarchy. And it was through the invention of technologies like the printing press and accounting systems that people got more access, and the floodgates of information and money opened up. And what we're going through right now, it's very similar. It's like the internet and this new ideas of money and accounting and wealth, which is crypto, maybe that is very powerful technology. It's information and money coming together. It doesn't mean that, you know, there were some questions here about centralization that I saw, and it doesn't mean that everything is fully decentralized in one step. It means that decentralization is a spectrum. So right now, you know, we're going from and states and companies like Facebook that 51% is owned by one man, to a place where communities are working together to create their own rules, where people have more autonomy and more comes to managing their own assets, their own money, their own wealth. And this is all thanks to technology that we're allowed to do this, but also, you know, technology is not just good and not just or both. So that's like on a philosophical level, but one of the things that I'm about is democratization of creative jobs. For example, I work with James Somerville, who is the ex-C-level graphic designer at Coca-Cola. And he quit Coca-Cola to build his own DAO, this own community, where he launched his own coin, and he has designers around the world. So he has like 15-year-old kids in Guatemala, and then he has like 87-year-olds, I think is the oldest person in his community in Ghana and everywhere in between. And he takes his own network of Fortune 500 companies and brings those opportunities to his community, which is global. So if you're like a 15-year-old kid who's like really good at graphic design, you can apply to this open call to work for a company like Ford, who wants a new campaign. So they take you know, the cryptocurrency to pay everyone. You don't need a visa. You don't need to move countries. You don't need to be a 30-year-old living in New York in order to get the same opportunities that somebody else would get. And you just get paid in crypto, and, you know, you send your work as NFTs. They are your intellectual property, even though you're part of this community who votes together and decides which are the best proposals, who give mentorship to each other. So I imagine a future in which, like, if my passion is art and motherhood and voting, then I'll be monetized from those 3 different coins. Whether I build those communities or I'm joining those communities, I truly see that as like the future of creative work.
Thanks so much. And Kenny, any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I would hope that the art world becomes less polarized and people just relax a little bit and stop. Everyone is so quick to judge and to criticize. And I just think, give it a chance. It's in the baby stages that's been communicated. And I'm hopeful that more artists like Kennedy, who's an amazing artist, will jump on board and use it to expand how their creativity and their self-expression. And this should be used as a communication, not as accusatory, you know, to arm yourself and use it as the way to dismiss people and attack. So I'm hopeful that it expands. I'm hopeful that it addresses some of the problems, the overt speculation and excessive energy consumption, and that it becomes less about the money. And I'd like to see people start to talk about great artists making great art, which is happening and will continue to happen.
Well, thank you so much for that. I couldn't think of a better words to end on. I appreciate all of you being part of today's discussion, your generosity, just being present and open. and kind. I want to wish you all a fantastic rest of the day. I know we're all in different parts of the world, so we don't need to call that out, but some of us need to go to bed. Some of us need to get started on our day. I just want to say thank you again. Thank you to New York Academy of Art. A recording of this discussion will be available on YouTube, and you can find that link on New York Academy of Art's website in the next couple of days. Thank you all. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dexter.
Bye.
Thank you.